Heyo! Over the weekend, I decided to join the GMTK 2023 Game Jam. Now, this was very exciting for me, as this was my first Game Jam ever, as well as my first time attempting to make a game in such a short amount of time, completely from the ground up. I actually made a game in about 48 hours back when I was in high school. I say this like I'm 35 or something. But this project was done in Scratch, so making the game wasn't too difficult to figure out. With this project, however, the game would have to be posted to itch, which meant I wasn't able to use Scratch as it doesn't let you compile your games. So this year, I took it upon myself to use GameMaker, as it's the program I've grown to love over the years. I've watched the results of these jams in the past, and for the past 2 years I thought about participating, but insecurities got in the way of me entering. This year, however, my girlfriend heavily encouraged me to try, so finally I decided I was going to enter the jam. This year's theme was Roles Reversed, and for my first jam, I was extremely excited to get such an adaptable theme. I actually saw the theme announcement while I was at work, so I immediately began thinking of ideas and telling Lee what the plan was. We bounced around some ideas, but I eventually suggested a concept where the game is Duck Hunt, but you play as the duck hunting hunters. Lee really felt the idea, so we decided to work with it. Since I work multiple jobs, Lee began planning out the concept while I laid out the technical side of the game. I would have the game loop be extremely simple, where a hunter would appear randomly in 1 in 6 different spots. The player would then have a limited amount of time to shoot the hunter, otherwise they lose a life. I had originally planned to add a dog and bonus shells, depending on how well you did, but as time started closing in, I knew I would just not have the time. A major issue when working multiple jobs is that my 48 hours was closer to 18, since most of my programming time was spent after work. This was a tad discouraging, but I was committed to make this work. While I was working on this, Lee was working on the character's look and general world building. We originally had this nice little story about a duck taking revenge on the hunter after they killed generations of ducks. Lee was doing a lot of planning work while I tended to other things, so here's what they had to say about their process.
I really like ducks, so when you mentioned ducks, I got excited to work with that idea. The first thing I did was research duck hunting from the art, story, and gameplay. I then based the characters off the original game as I wanted it to feel like a reverse duck hunt. I made a backstory for the duck and began the process of creating a prologue, which didn't end up in the game, but was cool anyways. After that, I designed the HUD elements as this helped Ori focus on programming.
Also, I swear to God, my girlfriend is real. I'm not in a relationship with a robot. They just prefer to use their voice. Yo, I swear my girlfriend is. Now, I realized that I have a major problem with overscope. So I really tried to prioritize making sure the game was simply playable over all the bells and whistles. With the concept and plan in place, it was time to start converting these concepts into sprites. When making any game, I always like to work on the art first because it allows me to visualize how the game will be played. I wanted to make sure the game kept the look of the original game as much as possible, so I created a bush, colored it, and duplicated it to create this line of bushes. I basically copy and pasted this row and made the colors darker to make the second row. After adding the iconic tree and designing the skyline, I ended up with a proper game look. Now, onto my favorite part, the HUD design. This game was originally going to have shell bonuses and difficulty ramping, so if you see certain elements in the HUD that aren't shown in the final product, that's why. I wanted to add all the basics like ammo count, kills, score, etc., so I worked on a little box very similar to the one in the original game. To save time, I reused the font I made for a different game and used that for text-based elements. To put the cherry on top, I added this portrait of the duck with their bandana because, look at him, he's badass. Next was time to design the hunter. I didn't try anything fancy and simply made a default and a hurt sprite for the hunter. I even made the sprites for the dog, but unfortunately I was not able to get to the dog. I honestly spent a little too much time on all these sprites, which came back to bite me later, but for now, it was time to get to the programming. Now, this was the part I was the most worried about, as I'm not the best programmer in the world. Nonetheless, I was really excited to start putting everything together. I also replaced your mouse with a crosshair for the shooting because it just felt better. There's certain elements of coding I'm still not confident with, so if you see me do things like, well this, just know it's because I was stressed due to time. Yeah, that's why. With that done, I cleaned up the sprites a bit and added some animations to it. I won't lie, I struggled with programming the hunter, and that was really starting to get to me. It was pretty late and I had an opening shift the next day, so I decided to just call it. The next day after work, I knew I had to get everything done. So when I got home, I immediately started working on the hunter. After some time, I finally fixed the hunter's AI and was able to work on a loop. By this point, I hadn't made the menu elements and time was ticking, so I quickly went back and made some title art and a quick game over screen. The game was finally coming around and the loop was pretty okay. By this point, it was getting late, so I finished cleaning everything up and published the game on itch. And really, that's basically it. There was a lot that had to be cut, like the dog showing up and messing with the player, the combo bonuses, the ramping difficulty. The game looks nice and it's pretty fun for about 10 seconds. The difficulty ramp would have made the game much more enjoyable, but with all the work I had to do, this 48-hour jam was really like an 18-hour one. Regardless, I'm happy I got anything done, and I really have to thank my wonderful girlfriend for encouraging me to enter this jam. It was a really amazing experience, and if you'd like to play the game for yourself, you can check the link in the description. I don't think I'll be updating the game, as I kind of want to leave it in its state that I submitted it to the jam, so you can enjoy it with all of its mistakes. And as always, thank you for watching. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Vanessa, Hannibal, Khalik, and Jasmine for supporting me and the channel. Your continued support helps me create more videos for everyone to enjoy. And if you're feeling really epic, you should support the Patreon for only $1 a month, $1, and join the Discord. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe as it really helps the channel. And with that, thank you, and I'll see you next time.